It's the Rob Carson Show. Are you ready to be podsmacked? Now, here's Rob Carson.
Here I am. It is the 15th of November, 2015. Glad to have you on the, watching the show, listening to the show. This is episode number 204 of the audio podcast, which is available on iTunes, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Audio Boom, SoundCloud, Patreon, and a host of other downloadable sites. I'd love it if you would download, because downloads mean advertisers. Okay. Also want to thank Liberty One TV for carrying this show. It is a tremendous opportunity for a lot of people to be able to express themselves freely. It's a great product. I believe we've got a lot of super pundits. My buddy Rusty Humphreys just added to the mix, nationally syndicated talk show host. So if you haven't become a member yet, please do it. 33 cents a day, $10 a month, $99 a year. That's all it is. That's all it is. Also, check out the swag line. This is my swag line, tepublic.com/user/conservatees. Order some great designs in time for Christmas on sweatshirts, T-shirts, and whatnot. You can tear down a statue, but you can't erase history. There's a Confederate Monument T-shirt. We've got some great Christmas designs also. Instead of Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas. We've got one that says, I say Merry Christmas, get over it. All of these are available right away. If you would order, that would be great. I'd appreciate it. And I think you're going to like them. And also Dots Pretzels, Dots Home Style Pretzels, an unofficial sponsor of this radio program. Why? Because they're just so good. They are just that good. All right. Bad day for Roy Moore. Bad 24 hours for Roy Moore. I have some questions about Roy Moore and his candidacy. It is becoming very apparent he had some real issues in his 30s with dating underage girls. Did he have sex with them? It appears not. But he did have a penchant for pedophilia, essentially. Okay? That's what it appears to be. My question, as the Republican National Committee abandoned its efforts to support the candidacy of Roy Moore, where the hell was the vetting? Where the hell was the vetting with this guy? Now, he had been through several elections because he's a judge. I'm not sure if he was appointed or if he was elected. My father-in-law was elected as a judge. But where was the vetting in all of this? Why would the Republican National Committee financially support this man if everybody in the town that he's from knew they didn't like to mess around with girls, little girls, high school girls? One accuser said Moore groped her in 1977 when she was 16, and she produced a yearbook with a signature that appeared to be from Moore. So Republicans have called for Moore to quit the race. Here's the problem with that. If Moore quits the race, the Democrat automatically wins, because in the state of Alabama, you can't put a new candidate in. If you yank a candidate, you can't replace the candidate on the ballot with somebody else. So they're going to have to figure out whether they want to give up the seat or they want to have Roy Moore elected and then appoint somebody when he gets to Washington, D.C. And there's some people who are saying that. That is a possibility. Sean Hannity had some tough words for Roy Moore. Sean Hannity, actually, he did a terrific interview with Roy Moore on Friday. And he was very blunt with Roy Moore. He wanted the honest answers, and I don't believe he feels he got them. Let's hear a little bit from the interview first, and then what Sean Hannity said yesterday.
What do you make of these allegations?
Well, Sean, first let me say this. These allegations are completely false and misleading.
Would it be unusual for you as a 32-year-old guy to have dated a woman as young as 17? That would be a, 15-year difference, or a girl 18. Do you remember dating girls that young at that time?
Not generally, no.
You don't specifically...
Not generally, no, is not a good answer.
Remember having any girlfriend that was in her late teens even at that time?
No, I don't remember that. I remember ever dating any girl without the permission of her mother. And I think in her statement, she said that her mother actually encouraged her to go out with me.
Okay, not a good answer. Not a good answer. In fact, I couldn't think of a worse answer, to be quite honest. Here's a little bit more from Sean Hannity and Judge Moore.
He denied knowing this fifth accuser, but this accuser has now brought forth a...
Actually, this is what he said today. Yesterday. I apologize.
...yearbook that Moore appeared to sign, quote, "To a sweeter, more beautiful girl, I could not say Merry Christmas, love Roy Moore, D.A." I looked at the handwriting. I know some people on Twitter have said things about this. He denied knowing.
Okay. Wow. Again, wow. Here is Sean Hannity. He basically issued an ultimatum to come clean or to get out of the race. Here's Sean Hannity from his show last night.
I never knew this girl. And then tonight, between this interview that I did and the inconsistent answers, between him saying, I never knew this girl, and then that yearbook comes out. For me, the judge has 24 hours. You must immediately and fully come up with a satisfactory explanation for your inconsistencies that I just showed. You must remove any doubt. If you can't do this, then Judge Moore needs to get out of this race. This country has way too many issues and problems. The American people deserve 100% truth and honesty.
Yeah, they do. And while I would not support the Democrat in this race, I don't, at this point, I can't vote. So it doesn't matter because I don't live in Alabama. But I don't know if I could vote for him. Unless I was guaranteed, I had some promises on high that he would be replaced when he got to D.C. with somebody who's not a mess. Last night, I guess, or over the weekend, I should say, he was at a campaign event in Walker Springs, the Road Baptist Church, and he threw God's name around quite a bit. He said, obviously, I've made a few people mad. I'm the only one that can unite Democrats and Republicans because I seem to be opposed by both. Ha, ha, ha. Here is where he explained what this whole scandal is about.
Why do you think they're giving me this trouble? Why do you think I'm being harassed by media and by people pushing forward allegations in the last 28 days of this election? Last 30 days it began. After 40-something years of fighting this battle, I'm now facing allegations, and that's all the press want to talk about. But I want to talk about the issues. I want to talk about where this country's going, and if we don't come back to God, we're not going anywhere.
Okay. Obviously, speaking in a church, so it makes sense to invoke God's name. But it's looking more and more like the man had some serious issues, and I can't go with supporting a man who's in his 30s who like teenage girls. There's something broken about this man. There's a character flaw within him. And haven't we had enough of this? Haven't we had enough of this? There are people who say that Roy Moore, it was known in the state of Alabama, in his town, that he liked teenage girls. It was very clear. There was a guy working at a record store at the mall, and he said there were two people you need to watch out for. You need to watch out for this guy who was a shoplifter, and you need to watch out for Roy Moore and see who he's leaving with. There were girls who worked in a restaurant in the town that Roy Moore lived in, and he said that he leered at them when they rejected his advances. He became very belligerent. Why? What happened to the vetting process? Honestly, what the hell happened to the vetting process? Something very, very, very wrong with this guy. And it should have never gotten this far. It should have never gotten this far. I was reading a column, New York Times. Well, this is actually from Breitbart. And, this is James Bovard, USA Today columnist. And he's written in USA Today, do Trump's liberal critics seem increasingly unhinged? I've got a couple sound bites I'm going to share with you. Maxine Waters at the Glamour Magazine Lifetime Achievement Award ceremony for her. I don't know what she's really accomplished. She's been a senator, or she's been a House of Representatives member, and she's made herself very wealthy. She lives in a $4 million house, not even in the district that she represents. And then a Democrat senator who says that Trump is so unstable, he might order a nuclear strike. I'm going to share that audio in just a second. Trump is supposedly the gravest threat to American democracy since the secession of the Confederacy. His presidency probably continues to be a boon for antidepressant sales across the land. New York Times columnist Michelle Goldberg, in a column last week, headlined Anniversary of the Apocalypse. She lamented the terror-struck and vertiginous ways after Trump's win and the ongoing metaphysical whiplash. Professor Henry Giroux of McMaster University fraught that Trump's ascendancy in American politics has made visible a culture of cruelty, a contempt for civic literacy, a corrupt mode of governance, and a disdain for informed judgment that has been decades in the making. But while Trump poses plenty of constitutional perils, many of his opponents are even more authoritarian now. Everybody's concerned about Donald Trump executive actions, overreaching, etc. But a Washington Post article recently touted 38 fixes for democracy, including mandating 3 years of compulsory labor for young people in the military of AmeriCorps-like programs, outlawing private education, punitively punishing gun owners, and vastly increasing redistribution to end racial inequalities. Political mob violence by Antifa against conservatives was vindicated in the Washington Post and cheered by prominent Democrats as the moral equivalent of the American soldiers who stormed Normandy beaches in 1944. I don't think they hurled urine and fecal matter at police officers, though. Many Democrats sound like they're ready to rush to impeachment regardless of what Trump has actually done. I'll share Maxine Waters in a few minutes. They seem inspired by the Soviet secret police chief who declared, "Show me the man and I will show you the crime." In their eyes, Trump's greatest sin is tarnishing the majesty of the presidency and the federal government. They don't like him because I guess he's unpresidential. I don't know, is banging an intern in the White House, is that presidential? Hysteria remains the 2017 political badge of honor. Last Wednesday, thousands of people gathered across the nation to shout at the sky to protest the anniversary of Trump's victory. But righteous rage is no substitute for focusing on the real perils that Trump and other president poses to our rights, and any other president poses to our rights. The friends of freedom need to keep their intellectual ammo dry. Here is Maxine Waters making another event into a political rally. She's done this before. She made Dick Gregory's funeral into a political rally, saying that she was going to sanitize the White House, rid the country of this dishonorable human being who has the alt-right and KKK and everybody else inside his camp. Let me crank this one up. Okay, we'll crank this one up. We'll use the other mic. Having some oddness in the studio the last couple of days. I don't know what it is. Gremlins, I guess. Okay, so we'll move this mic out of the way because it doesn't work. And we'll just use this one instead. This is kind of, okay. Anyway, back to Maxine Waters and what she's been saying. She was at the Glamour Women of the Year Awards and started to chant Impeach 45, while many speeches during the evening by other honorees like Nicole Kidman, Gigi Hadid, and others were mostly uplifting messages seemingly aimed at local schoolgirls. I'm glad Roy Moore wasn't there. Waters focused on recruiting the next generation of progressive politicians and never-ending campaign to oust the president. Here is a little bit of Maxine Waters and the crowd. And by the way, it sounds like she's whipping the crowd into a frenzy, but a lot of people were not going along with her Impeach 45. Here is the unhinged, dumb as a box of rocks, without the rocks, Maxine Waters.
You recognize when a leader is irresponsible. You recognize when a leader is dishonorable and disrespectful of you. You recognize when a leader is dangerous, even if that leader is the President of the United States of America. And I want you to have the courage. I want you to know that you can stand up to him or anybody else. And for those who say to me, you are asking for something too soon and too early, be careful. Don't jeopardize yourself. Don't say what you're saying right now, but I continue to say, impeach him.
Unbelievable. For what?
Impeach 45. Impeach 45. I didn't hear you. Impeach 45. Thank you.
Go to hell. Honestly, just go to hell. You wretched, awful woman. So unhinged. Can't accept the results of the election. All the Democrats have to offer is hate. That's all they have. That's what's on their ballot nationally. That's the plank in their platform. Hate. It's time for the American people to start fighting back. I, for one, am one of them. You look at how the president is being treated abroad. There's a great article in the UK Daily Mail, oddly enough, by Piers Morgan, and he talked about it. Donald Trump had an awe-inspiring and incredible visit to Asia. He was respected. His wife was respected. They had massive celebrations for him. There's a hamburger. He ordered a hamburger in Japan, and now you can't get into the restaurant where the hamburgers are being sold because everybody wants the hamburger that Donald Trump ate. This is sickening, and the caterwauling is going to get louder, and it is getting louder. You've heard Maxine Waters irresponsibly say that there are white supremacists in the White House, that Donald Trump is a racist. You've heard some say that there are Nazis in the White House. That is effing dangerous. You've got a U.S. senator who's attacked by a socialist. Rand Paul, 6 broken ribs, fluid on the lungs, tackled off his riding lawnmower by a socialist in his neighborhood, and the HOA saying it's about a tree in Rand Paul's yard. I don't think so. This on the heels of congressmen and bodyguards shot on a baseball field in Arlington, Virginia by an unhinged Bernie Sanders supporter. The left is unhinged, and they are dangerous. Democrat Senator Chris Murphy, during a Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing to look into the president's authority to order use of nuclear weapons, had this to say, and this, again, is irresponsible. And this comes from a man who was appointed Secretary of Defense, Mad Dog Mattis. All right? This man, this president, at least is surrounding himself by the best of the best of the best, and he's allowing them to lead. For Chris Murphy to say this is absolutely unhinged and irresponsible.
We are concerned that the President of the United States is so unstable, is so volatile, has a decision-making process that is so quixotic that he might order a nuclear weapon strike
Absurd.
That is wildly out of step with U.S. national security interests. So let's just recognize the exceptional nature of this moment and the discussion that we're having today.
It's absurd. It's absurd on the face of it. Barack Obama had no military experience whatsoever when he took office. They never said anything about this. Group of 6 Democrat House members introduced articles of impeachment against Donald Trump today, claiming the president has violated federal law. The public trusted should be charged with high crimes and misdemeanors. F you. Steve, let me see here. I'm getting some junk on here. Okay. This is just coming down from the Daily Caller. Democrats, Representative Steve Cohen of Tennessee, Luis Gutierrez of Illinois, who's a radical leftist, Al Green of Texas, of course, Adriano Espaillat of New York, 5 articles of impeachment. The articles have 2 more sponsors, Representatives Marcia Fudge of Ohio and John Yarmouth from Kentucky. Unbelievable. I'm gonna fight for this president. I think he's doing a good job. I think that the military is behind him. I think he's doing a great job. He delivered a magnificent speech in Vietnam with several Vietnam veterans on stage. It was moving. It was powerful. He's fixing the VA. He's fixing the damned economy. I don't know. Have you heard of Syria dropping any chemical bombs on their people? Have you heard that? You know? Have you heard much from North Korea the last couple of weeks? Have you noticed that? And Trump went to China? Uh-huh. I'm thoroughly fed up. It looks like the media is being forced to acknowledge Bill Clinton's sex crimes or alleged sex crimes. You got Paula Jones, Kathleen Willey, Juanita Broderick. They've all accused Bill Clinton of sexual harassment, and worse, Willey accused Clinton of making advances on her, groping her in the Oval Office, the same place where Clinton instructed a young intern to perform oral sex on him. Paula Jones accused Clinton of sexually harassing her at an Arkansas hotel room where she worked. He made several unsuccessful advances towards her, lowered his trousers and underwear, exposed his penis, told her to kiss it. All three alleged victims have long struggled to get their media to believe their stories. Now, as the Clintons are on their way out in Democrat Party politics, some journalists are ready to acknowledge the seriousness of the accusations. MSNBC's Chris Hayes acknowledged Friday that it is true that Democrats and the center left are overdue for a real reckoning with the allegations against Bill Clinton. Duh! I think it's about time to talk about Juanita Broderick. Vice's Eve Pizer said, I believe her. The Atlantic editor, Caitlin Flanagan, acknowledged that Bill Clinton's defenders were on the wrong side of history in a piece on Monday entitled Bill Clinton, The Reckoning. New York Times columnist Michelle Goldberg wrote a column for Tuesday's paper titled, I Believe Juanita. It's fair to conclude that because of Broderick's allegations, Bill Clinton no longer has a place in decent society. But we should remember that it's not a simply partisan tribalism that led liberals to doubt her. Of course, you and I are laughing about this because, duh. And at least with Roy Moore, you've got, if Roy Moore were a Democrat, and Rush Limbaugh pointed out yesterday that Roy Moore was a Democrat when he went after the teenage girls. But if Roy Moore were a Democrat, they'd be circling the wagons around this guy. He would be elected, or at least he would stay in the race. But they would circle the wagons around this guy. They would. Referring to the recent accusations against Moore, CNN anchor Jake Tapper noted on Monday that the accusers of Bill Clinton back in the 90s were never given the credence and treated with the same respect that these women are being treated. And I think that there is something to be said about how society has evolved since then. No, that's not how society has evolved. That's how the Democrat Party has evolved or devolved. Tapper said that it's hard not to look back at that period and think that the media treated those women very poorly. Well, no shit, Sherlock. He's from the Atlantic. Feminists saved the 42nd president of the United States in the 90s. They were on the wrong side of history. Is it finally time to make things right? History instructs us that for countless men, the ability to possess women sexually is not a spoil of power. It's the point of power. What's remarkable is that these women are being believed. Anita Hill's historic allegations against Clarence Thomas in 1991, when she came forward during Thomas' Supreme Court confirmation hearing and reported that he had sexually humiliated and pressured her throughout his tenure as her boss. It was an event of convulsive national anxiety. She had little evidence to support her accusations. Many believed that since she'd been a lawyer at the EEOC, she had been uniquely qualified to have handled such harassment. To the surprise of millions of men, the nation turned out to be full of women of all political stripes and socioeconomic backgrounds who had to put up with that hell. At work, mothers, sisters, aunts, girlfriends, wives, millions of men shared the experience of having to wait tables, draw blood, argue cases, make sales, all while fending off the groping, the joking, the sexual pressuring, and the threatening of male bosses. They were liberal and conservative, white collar and pink collar, black and white, and Hispanic and Asian. Their common experience was not political, economic, or racial. Their common experience was female. And we're finding out today, after Harvey Weinstein started this cascade of dominoes falling, and I told you they were going to fall on Washington. I told you. Bookends of depravity, Hollywood, Washington, D.C., and all of the houses in between, all of the houses of Congress in between. We find out that women were afraid to get on elevators alone. We found that women were pressured to perform sex acts to get their bills heard or passed. We found out that $15 million was paid to a bunch of women in the last decade and a half, 2 decades, for sexual harassment. We don't know about it. And we know that two, a Republican and a Democrat, are known sexual abusers. I want to know names. I want the sons of bitches drummed out of office. It's time to end this. Something in the country had changed about women and work and the range of things men could do to them there. Then came Bubba and blew up the tracks. Yes, let us not forget the sex crimes of the younger, stronger Bill Clinton was very credibly accused in the 1990s. Juanita Broderick reported that when she was a volunteer, she had arranged to meet him in a hotel coffee shop. At the last minute, he changed the location of the hotel room. She says he got very violent and raped her. Put some ice on it. He would have troopers invite women to his suite where he'd expose his penis. He did that to Paula Jones. Kathleen Willey, of course, he rubbed his erect penis on her in the Oval Office, pushed her hand to his crotch. It was a pattern of behavior. It concluded an alleged violent assault. The women involved had far more credible evidence than many of the most notorious accusations that have come to light in just the past few weeks. Bill Clinton was not left to the swift and pitiless justice that today's accused men have experienced. Rather, he was rescued by a surprising force, machine feminism. And it exposed the National Organization for Women for being the political partisans that they are. They don't give a crap about women. The party needs to come to terms with the fact that it was so enraptured by their brilliant big dog president and his stunning string of progressive accomplishments that it abandoned some of its most central principles. The party was on the wrong side of history, and there are consequences for that. If Weinstein and Mark Halperin and Louis C.K. and all the rest can be held accountable, so can our former president, and so can his party, while so many Americans so desperately need to rise again. This is in The Atlantic. Charlie Rose interviewed on Friday. He was talking to, I think it's about, it is, hold on, cuts 18 and 19. Oh, yes, David Brooks. On Friday, David Brooks argued that tolerating former Bill Clinton's behavior had a hand in creating an environment where sexual misconduct was given a pass. So he's saying it's going back to Clinton, and it did. While Washington, D.C. was preaching to you and me that you needed to go get sexual harassment training, while people lost their jobs, some deserved to, and some maybe not. There was a sexual harassment mania in the 1990s. Bill Clinton completely missed the boat. He went right on doing what he was doing. And he essentially gave people permission to do it. Here's David Brooks.
Because it is that weird mixture of lust combined with dominance, combined with an inability to see the person you are there with. And what struck me about a lot of people have denied it, some have come out with apologies. What struck me about the apologies, the first thing they say is, and I sort of believe them, I had no idea the women were thinking this way. I think that it's just an inability to put your mind in the mind of the person you are pushing yourself all over.
It's sociopathic.
And it's sort of a moral and humanist blindness toward another human being's experience.
Yeah. And it's apparently been happening in Washington, D.C., left and right. It's been running rampant. It's time to drain the damned swamp. Here's a little bit more from David Brooks about the Clinton effect.
And the uncomfortable thing for a lot of progressive, frankly, is how much did the Clinton thing create this whole environment? How much did tolerance of Bill Clinton create the environment in which the rest of this was given permission?
How much do you think?
I think it had effect. I think the fact that nobody was approving of Bill Clinton and some of the things he was accused of doing by Kathleen Willey and those sorts of people, but people were not saying, no, we're drawing the line here. And if you don't draw lines in these big cases, then you don't draw lines in the little cases in the workplace.
And as the story grows in Washington, D.C., we learn more and more. Just really despicable. I mean, just despicable. The leaders of our country, some of the most despicable people you can imagine. And of course, there are good. Of course, there are good. I would venture to say that most are. I'm done with this, man. I'm done with this. I've got a daughter and I've got a beautiful wife. And if that ever happened to them, I'll personally yank your manhood off. 3 freshmen, basketball players, were detained in China on suspicion of shoplifting. headed back to the United States yesterday. Donald Trump leaned on President Xi Jinping